So I want to start with what happened in Georgia on Thursday, and details sort of crept out over the weekend. And it seemed like every minute the story kept getting worse and worse. There was a young lady, her name is Laken Riley, and a 22-year-old nursing student there in Georgia at a college in Augusta. And she was living in Athens, which is home to the University of Georgia. And went out for a run. It was a little before noontime and never came back. So the police were summoned. They did a check and they searched these woods. And it turns out that she was killed. Her body was found. Police have not released many details, but apparently it was a pretty bad situation. There were very visible signs that she had been killed. And we don't know what that is, and I'm not sure we want to know. But the 22-year-old American-born, brilliant nursing student, she was on the dean's list. She was training for a race, a marathon. She was just out doing what every other American kid was probably doing, which was having a good time, living life, going to school, setting goals, and trying to aspire to those goals. And so anyway, she's out for this run, and she gets attacked, and now we know that the attacker is an illegal alien, and he is in custody. Now, word leaked out over the weekend, and I believe our friends over at News Nation actually broke this part of the story, and they found out that this guy had actually crossed the border illegally in El Paso and was captured by Border Patrol agents. But they let this guy go because there was no room, so they couldn't house any of the illegals. So they had to let him go. And this guy ends up in New York City with his brother, who's also a bad egg. So anyway, the illegal alien goes out there. Apparently he's driving without a license. There's some sort of an accident, and a child gets injured. And as far as we know, and we don't have many details of that, but he was arrested and then he was set free. So yet another opportunity to stop this criminal illegal alien. So they let the guy go. He leaves New York City and he comes to Georgia. And this guy is a predator. And now, as a result of moving to Athens, Georgia, which, by the way, happens to be a sanctuary city, and the radical policies of the district attorney there, this guy was out there lurking, searching for a victim. And he found one in Laken Riley, this 22-year-old. I believe she is from Woodstock, Georgia, just north of Atlanta, one of the suburbs, the bedroom community. So there was a lot of initial reaction to this missing co-ed student, and that gets everybody's attention. Nancy Grace just pops up, her ears perk up. Everybody's wondering, oh, wow, big story. But as soon as the media found out who the attacker was, they dropped this story. You can find hardly any information about it. And now the media is working overtime to try and change the narrative here. And what is the narrative? The narrative is that Joe Biden's open border policies killed an American citizen. It's very simple. It's not hard here to understand what's going on. But the media is taking a whole different approach. As a matter of fact, I was doing some investigating over the weekend. The New York Times, there was a story about an owl that is apparently a beloved owl in New York City. There were 6 stories on the front page of the New York Times about a dead owl. There was not one single story about Laken Riley. Not one. None. As a matter of fact, no cities burned down over the weekend. There were no marches in the streets. None of the race-baiting agitators were out there holding press conferences. No condemnation. None of that. None. It's as if it never happened. As a matter of fact, the Associated Press did a big story about the dangers of females going out and jogging, as if that was the reason why Laken Riley got killed because she wanted to go out for a run. But that's not it, ladies and gentlemen, and you know what's going on here. But again, when you look at the broader picture, our country has been invaded by young men of military age, young men who are members of drug cartels. The amount of crime in this country and the violence connected to that crime is about to blow your mind. And I'm not sure there's anything we can do about it. What needs to happen is when they find this guy guilty, they should hold a public execution in downtown Athens, Georgia. That's what they ought to do. We need to be sending a very clear message to the criminals that were allowed to invade this country that we will not tolerate lawlessness in America. And quite frankly, however the victim died, that's how the criminal ought to die. That's the way I see things. But there are people out there right now that are actually defending this illegal alien. It seems to me, ladies and gentlemen, at the very least, Joe Biden has blood on his hands, as does every Republican out there. By the way, you know who we haven't heard from? We haven't heard from the 2 Democrat senators in the state of Georgia. Where are they? Why are they not out standing alongside this grieving family? And I'm glad that Governor Brian Kemp finally jumped on board, but he didn't do that until he saw where the narrative was going. So, ladies and gentlemen, the question here, what ought to be done with this illegal? And does Biden have blood on his hands?